Today's the third day of the February 1987 7-day retreat. And it's an unbelievably beautiful day. Bright sun and the sparkling snow. Blue sky. And ski tracks all over. Maybe one would rather put on those skis and climb up the hills, slide down through the woods, have fun, rather than listening to a serious talk. Or can there be joy in listening? Not the joy of inspiration, but the joy of listening and looking and discovering for oneself. Since there are a few new people here today who haven't been here before, please let me say a few words about listening to a talk. You may find it boring having heard it before and so many times before. But if there is this feeling of boredom at hearing something that one has heard before, what is the state of the mind? It's all open to inspection, to wondering about it. Is one, in fact, listening from a memory, the memory being there of what has been said, so listening out of that memory? Like hearing an old tune and humming along with it. But that's not listening. In listening, the mind is quiet and doesn't scan for memories of what is being said, what it reminds one of, comparing it or commenting on it, but openness, not acceptance. Then there's someone to accept or reject. So what is this open listening? And looking and questioning at the same time. At what is pointed at, talked about. Sometimes people say and have said, isn't there a danger in this talking of this one person here, Toni? Don't people become attached to you? Are you even aware that they're attached to you if they are? And what are you going to do about it? Or are you attached to the people listening to you? There's very legitimate questions to ask. And to look for oneself, not just superficially, but deeply if there is attachment. If there is attachment, the listening is not clear. It is shaped and distorted by the attachment. And the speaking has a motive to keep that attachment coming intact. So again, is it possible to listen without attachment to the person who's speaking or the people who are listening? Looking at attachment, if it's there, and in the seeing, can it be the dispelling of it, the freeing of it? So the channels are clear and open. It doesn't mean that there cannot be love here among us. Because love is not attachment. We think of it that way. We feel it that way. Most of the time. Our human love fraught with attachment and therefore with fear and jealousy, pain, the urge to possess. Can there be love without the urge to possess? Without attachment? And the need to cultivate that attachment? Can one see these movements of the mind and body as they occur, as they happen? One can think about them in retrospect, or one can see them instantly as they happen. And does that free the mind to be open? Sensitive, impartial, without projections. This is for each one of us to find out and question and look into if we want to, if we are so inclined. There can be no force in this. And no one can do it for another. Question has come up in different forms, and we'll look at that this morning. The different forms of the question are: or the problem, I don't know where I'm going. Or I wish I knew where I was going. Or, is there any place to go? Or, do you know where you are going? This verbalization of a state, I don't know where I'm going. And usually the uneasiness about it. Feeling of insecurity, not feeling in control. And the fear of this not being in control, anxiety about this insecurity of not being sure where one is going. and wondering, should I know where I'm going? Or can you tell me where to go? And do you know where you're going? Wanting to make certain. Of a direction. Of a purpose. Of a goal. And in the absence of that, a feeling of, one person put it, not knowing where my handles are here. And yet, if one looks, not just not knowing where the handles are, there's nothing wrong with that, but looking for some handles to hold on to. Something. To avoid possible misunderstanding, let us divide practical matters from the work we're doing here. Practical matters like preparing for a job or planning a trip. Wondering, contemplating whether or not to have a family. Needing to move from a house that's gotten too small to a bigger house. There have to be thoughts about where one is going. Even there it can become a very interesting and complex thing, but there's nothing wrong with planning where one is going. One plans for a trip or a new house, a new job or a first job, which university and so forth. And then can the mind function clearly, drawing on memory, on knowledge, either stored in the brain or stored in books or in other people's brains, to help in the decision where to go. We're not talking about this. In questioning, where am I going? Is there a place to go? Should there be one? Here we're talking about this inquiry into oneself. Or are we indeed inquiring into ourselves? Or are we here to get something? Do we come with a goal? Enlightenment, truth, freedom. Right now, as these words are being uttered, enlightenment, truth, freedom, they're words, aren't they? They're concepts. Not just standing by themselves, but associated with what one has heard and read about them. Maybe not just recently, but for a long time in one's life. It is an ancient goal of human beings to find something beyond the daily drudgery of our lives, the monotonousness, pain and sorrow of it. To find something, some state or experience which will lift one out of all of that, be done with that and be in a new state, free from this daily drudgery. And now somebody says, look at it. Look at this goal of freedom, enlightenment, peace. What at this moment, as one is thinking about it, or visualizing it, what is it in the mind? Other than a visualization, a conceptualization, linked with all one has heard and known about it, including all that mankind has ever hoped for in that. We are the result of all of that. Through our parents, grandparents, and we're all linked together in our consciousness, our desires and hopes and fears. So someone says, look at it. What is it right now to you in the mind? Is it a reality or is it an idea? And further questioning whether in this work of inquiring into oneself, the mind can be free from ideas, from goals, and the motive to get to those conceptualized goals, states, experiences. Not repressing that urge, but seeing it, being cognizant of it, aware of it. And in that awareness, seeing the narrowness of the channel of wanting to get to that goal. You may say, I don't see the narrowness of it. Does one see wanting to get something, to get someplace, the movement of it, the motive, the imagination of it, and the striving for it? The relative security of being in that channel, having something definite to do, something definite to strive for, to aspire toward. Is that part of inquiring into oneself, to discover these movements? See them for what they are? Not for the sake of anything, but because they're there. Not only in their relative narrowness, but in their movement away from what actually is the daily drudgery, the boredom, the feeling of unfulfillment, such emptiness, as one person put it. Such emptiness in one's life. Shallowness, someone else said. Can one see that? Not just see it, but feel it. Without any escape, without any separation. And seeing that bringing up the goal of liberation is an escape from this. And this is carried along in the baggage, in some kind of a disguise. We take it along on our road of seeking. can we look for a moment at this very thought of going somewhere? What are the ingredients of thinking in those terms? We've done it, but we'll do it over. So, to drop what we've previously talked about and just look at it afresh. Going into some direction. Can that happen at all, that mode of thinking, if there is no thinking? Can there be a longing for some place to go, or an urgency, or compulsion, desire to go into some direction if there is not a thought about it? Thought, in fact, creating the difference between the here and now, as we call it. We have a concept which is very popular these days, the concept of the here and now, and living in the here and now. And separate from that, some other place. Thought can do that. Thought can create that. Thought and memory. Maybe a memory of having been in some different state. The memory of it, and now the projection of that. I want to go there again. Get that back. Maybe deeper, longer, better. It's all the work of thought. Do you see that? Can one be aware of that? That to be wanting to go someplace else, there has to be thought about someplace else. It may sound very trivial. The words themselves may sound, well, so what? But if you see it as a function of the mind, with its repercussions on the whole system, dissatisfaction with the here and now, which is not looked at, lived in depth and fullness, because thought projects over there, where I'm going. The energy that comes from that thought of where I'm going, energy of anticipation, of looking forward to something. We all know that energy so well from our daily life. One person told me there's almost not a minute in my life in which I'm not looking forward to something other than what I'm in. That's observation. One may immediately slap down that observation by saying, I should be in the here and now. And then the freedom of looking is thwarted, because one has judged something as being wrong. And the observation or whatever is going on can't unfold, unravel, show itself. The energy that comes from looking forward to a trip, to being with somebody, and therefore being able to bear the drudgery of here and now, but not necessarily the energy being awareness of what's here and now. Just the ability to put up with it and nurturing the thoughts of where I will be. The deliciousness of the anticipation. the mouth watering at imagining a wonderful meal is so real. The body responds in very real ways to our fantasies. Brain does not differentiate between an imagined goal and something that's actually here, a piece of food where saliva needs to run to digest it. Same with fear. The brain does not differentiate between an actual danger in which the body is rallied with all kinds of juices and muscle tension to meet the danger, and an imagined danger. It reacts the same way. And we may not be aware of it and bemoan our tense condition due to imagined fears. Not understand it, because there was not the awareness of how this leads to that. Instantly, a thought immediately is responded to physically. Instantly. One could almost say it's faster than thought. So coming back to this question, whether there would be the yearning for the other place, the other state, the new experience, or the old experience repeated, if there wasn't thought and memory and knowledge. Or whether in fact it is the creation of thought, memory, and knowledge. No basis in reality. This brings us to the whole question of time, whether this is not precisely the same way. Time being created by thought. Again, let us separate here for the sake of clarity and avoiding misunderstanding that there is such a thing as time on the watch. At 12 o'clock or at whatever time there's lunch, so people can conveniently get together and eat, prepare the food so it's ready on time. There are planes leaving, taking one home, or buses, time schedule for a program of study. We're not talking about practical time, even though that too is invention of thought. It's arbitrary. There have been many different calendars in the history of mankind. And conditioned by our particular earth movements and sun movements around the sun and so forth. On a different planet we'd have a different time, practical time. One doesn't have to call sunrise and sunset time, does one? We say today the sun will rise in such and such a time. But sun and earth know of no time. It's just a very orderly, albeit very mysterious movement and relationship. Which no matter how much scientific research we do, it still eludes us. The mystery of it all eludes us, fortunately. It eludes scientific explanation to completion, to perfection. So what about what we can call psychological time? The time of which it may take for me to get to my goal. Not how long, I may not know, but that it takes time, I think so. One thinks so. I don't, but this is the way the brain works. If one thinks of a goal, which is not here, which is there, then it takes time to get there. A thought can't think any differently. Thought itself, in its very occurrence, in its very happening, takes time. And all the spiritual teachings, religious teachings of getting to the goal, to the state of whatever, union, liberation, or a paradise, takes time, maybe lifetimes. Which is, please look at it, don't take my word for it, but look at it. It is the operation of thought, isn't it? You can see it right now. To think of, I will be enlightened, is thought, and it creates time. Because obviously I say I'm not enlightened now, so it'll take time to get there. And all the teachers have said so too. Because there's this dual teaching of its being instant, and yet the time is not wasted to try to get there. I don't want to go into that. I just want to look here how the mind works for all of us. The whole conceptualization of a future is in thought, isn't it? What we will do, what we will be, what we will have, what will happen to us, or may happen to us, is all a process of thinking with accompanying emotions of looking forward with pleasure or scared, anxiety-filled about what may happen to me in the future if I think about it, based on what I know has happened in the past or what I read may happen, earthquakes or ice age coming back or the sun giving out or collapsing into the earth. All that you can read and hear and keep yourself constantly scared through thought of what will happen in the future. But as one sits right now and listens, open to what's actually happening. Yes, there's the breathing, that's there. One may feel the heart beating, maybe sensation in the knees or in the back. One may hear someone else breathing, some rustling of clothes, some moving of furniture, whatever it is. Here it's being named, but in listening, it doesn't need to be named. Can there just be open listening to whatever is going on, inside and out? Not trying to explain it, analyze it, know it. In that listening, in that openness, open awareness, which doesn't judge or expect Is there a future? Is there some place to go? When thought arises, I'm not going any place with this. Then there's the future. I may or may not get there. Or where's she going? Is she getting us someplace or preventing us from getting someplace? I'm not saying people say that. Nobody's ever said that. I just invented it. Can one get a glimpse that our fears are connected, completely connected with thought of past and future? You may say, no, sometimes I have a fear, I have no thought, but I'm afraid, filled with anxiety. But maybe the thought that triggered this anxiety is long past. It has eluded the awareness. One wasn't aware. One was absorbed in thinking. And here's the anxiety. The same process of thinking that creates the pleasures of the past and future. And our hanging on to it. Wanting it back, wanting it again, or wanting it for the first time. This is all connected with the process of thinking. This is not a lecture on thinking. We're looking at it. Can one see it? As clear as the tracks in the snow. There's a very famous ancient Chinese dialogue that comes to mind of, probably you've heard it, fits in here. Two people walking across a field with a flock of wild geese overhead, and one says to the other, "What are those?" And the other saying, "Those are wild geese." And the first questioner saying, after a while, "Where have they gone?" And the answer being, "Well, they've flown away." At which the questioner tweaks the nose of the answerer. And something is clearly understood at that instant by both of them. Maybe not just something, maybe the whole thing. Geese flying overhead, and it's just a walk, 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 walk. That's all. It's not forbidden to think, where are they going? Are they going south? Is it already spring and so forth? They're early this year. That's all right. It's not forbidden. But can one see? what happens at that moment. So much happens at that moment. First of all, one doesn't quite see and hear the geese anymore. Now it becomes important to know about them. To know that they're wild geese. After all, we become somebody when we know something. When we have a name for something, then we manifest and confirm our knowledge, our erudition, or whatever you want to call it. And that's how we go into the trap. Maybe this person isn't asking for knowledge. But we're so used to it. We go for a walk and we constantly ask, what is this? What is that? What's the name of this? Nothing wrong in naming trees or birds. But can one see what happens when that process is going on? Yeah. In the brain and throughout the body, if one feels, one knows. Or one person once told me, I walk through the woods with this person, he knows everything. I don't know a single tree. It makes me feel very down. So where are we going? Where am I going? Do I have to go someplace? Is that just the ooh of whatever is out there? We call it airplane, but the word is not this ooh. Is that just that? Listen. Or is the brain trying to orient itself in space? Where is it going? Is it going, I don't know, from here to there, north, south, west, east? Then the brain work with its associations and implications becomes important, and the sound is no longer heard. It just becomes very peripheral. Just to see that, feel it, hear it. And one thing we didn't mention, where this brain work takes place, there is the feeling of separation. If it's not seen, detected, and cleared through insight. Because the one who's thinking about the plane, where it's going, or the geese, what they are, that they have flown away, that thinker feels herself or himself separate from the geese and the plane. It goes automatically like that. Can you test all that out? Verify it for yourself. And whether at a moment of listening in which there's no brain work, the brain is quiet, it's listening, it's wondering. Not what that is, but in a state of wondering what something is without a name, without a reaction. Or what everything is without a name and without a reaction. That brain is quiet. It's open. It's asked a question, it has to listen. And in that listening, there's no separation. between me and you and that. Can one work that way? Together as well as alone? We will end here for today.